Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Get this slideshow set up so we can get started with our little review. All right, so general final exam stuff. On each one of these slides, there is going to be a list of vocabulary terms. With vocabulary terms, you need to know them well enough so that presented with the definition, you can choose from a list of 4 possible choices to be able to answer that particular question. So as you're looking at the terms here, just make sure you understand them well enough to be able to recognize them out of a group of 4 if given the definition. So with Unit 1, here's a list of some of the different things that we were talking about. Types of stuff that we did in Unit 1, if you look back at the Unit 1 exam, which was actually a paper exam, so hopefully you kept that and you can look back and find it. Things that we had to do, you had to be able to identify something as either a pure substance or a mixture. You had to be able to then separate it out into an element or a compound based on its formula. You had to be able to identify a mixture as being either heterogeneous or homogeneous based on its appearance, its properties, things of that nature. With that, you also had to be able to identify physical and chemical changes, physical and chemical properties, knowing that you had the same substance if you undergo a physical change and you have a new substance if you undergo a chemical change. We also did experimental design stuff. So you had to be able to identify independent, dependent, and control variables, be able to understand what is a good researchable question, be able to identify what is a good claim that can be made by an experiment. So these are the types of things that you need to know how to do. Down here, these questions and readings refer to the chemistry textbook that's in the cabinet over there. Okay. And it has a pear on the cover. A pear of what, you say? Well, actually, the fruit, the pear. So grab one of those if you want to look at some extra questions in addition to some of the other stuff that we're giving you to be able to be ready. All right, Unit 2. This was more of some of the kind of the numbers in chemistry, right? So we did a lot of stuff with significant figures and measurement. So you had to understand accuracy and precision, the difference between those. And then with significant figures, you had to understand how to count them within a number. So if I said, hey, here's a number, how many significant figures are there in here? So remember, zeros were the difficult part with that. You want to go back through and make sure you practice some of that. Also calculating with significant figures, making sure that when you're done, you are rounding to the correct degree of accuracy. Now, there are a few things in here that we didn't do. We did not do any dimensional analysis stuff. We also did not do any conversions between Celsius and Kelvin. So I decided to save that for second semester because that's where we actually get into more of the math of this class. So we're going to wait and talk about some conversion stuff, probably right when we get back from break, actually. So, hey, something to look forward to. Yay. Qualitative versus quantitative. This is just something that we talked about. Qualitative being more of a descriptive type thing, like, hey, that's red. Quantitative being more of a numerical type thing, where that red thing weighs 5.6 grams. That's another thing that you can think about there. So again, here's the vocabulary terms. We did do some density calculations, so make sure you can do all this stuff. Oh yeah, percent error as well as a way of being able to understand, how accurate you were. All right. Unit 3 was all about atoms, structure of the atom. So make sure you can remember the difference between some of the folks and some of the things that they did. The Unit 3 exam was on Schoology. You should be able to go back and look at that to give you an idea of some of the different types of questions that you need to be able to answer. So there was a lot with that. The electron configuration stuff was in there. So the 1s2, 2s2. So you want to make sure you can go back and practice that, both the full electron configuration as well as the noble gas version of that. Make sure you understand how to use the periodic table to determine how many protons, neutrons, and electrons something has based on its atomic number and its mass number. Make sure you understand the difference between mass number and an average atomic mass, one of them being the mass of an individual isotope and the other one being the weighted average of all of the isotopes, the one that appears on the periodic table. And then just be able to compare and contrast some of the different models that we have, Bohr, Rutherford, things of that nature, as well as atomic emission spectrum. Make sure that you can understand what's going on with those energy levels as you go through and you have the red color and the green color and it's jumping back and forth. Right? Unit 4, Just got done with that one not too long ago, right? Just took that exam. That exam, again, is also on Schoology, so you can go back and look at some of the questions from that. It was all multiple choice. Starts out with things like periodic trends, atomic radius, electronegativity, ionization energy. Make sure you can do some of that stuff. Then we went into bonding. We talked about ionic bonding, covalent bonding, and so the difference between those. Electrons being transferred, electrons being shared. Make sure you can do some of the molecular geometry stuff with the tetrahedral and the linear. Make sure you understand between polar and nonpolar. Just all of that stuff from Unit 4. You're going to want to go back and make sure that you have an opportunity to check some of that out. Looking at all, there's a ton of assignments, man. Unit 4, Mr. Wood really did a good job of making sure that you had plenty of opportunities to be able to get looks at stuff. So there's a lot of things there to go back and look at for Unit 4. There was a lot of information in there. It's very, very, very rich in chemistry. Look back on all of that stuff. And then the naming stuff at the end, too. Make sure you understand those 3 different naming strategies, type 1, type 2, and type 3. When you would use which one. When do I use Roman numerals? When do I use prefixes? What do the Roman numerals mean? What do the prefixes mean? Things like that. And then the polyatomic ions, we give you the formulas and the names for the 6. You'll see that when we have a chance to look at the different periodic tables that you're allowed to use. All right. Last one was all about chemical reactions. We just got done with this stuff. Make sure that you understand how to balance. Make sure you understand how to classify between the 5 types: synthesis, decomposition, single, double, and combustion. Make sure you understand how to predict what something might produce on the other side of the arrow. Based on what you see on the left-hand side and the reactants, make sure you understand this idea of activation energy, what has to happen in order for reaction to be able to take place. So it's the stuff we've been working on here in about the last week and a half or so. Not a lot of time with it, and so hopefully it's fairly fresh. The one sheet that's probably going to be the most beneficial to you to look at would be the one that we had for notes. That was the one where we looked at all the different reaction types. It was like a legal-sized piece of paper, had 4 different little mini worksheets on there, and we worked on that for a couple days in class. So that'd be a great one to look at. Again, you can look back at some of the quizzes from that particular unit, some of the stuff that we did in there, as well as the practice final. So there are a few things in there that you can look at. Make sure you check out the practice final in Schoology and go through and make sure you understand how to answer all those questions. Take notes. Make sure you're using the periodic table that you're going to be able to use on the exam to help you out, to realize what other things you might need to study and make sure that you have kind of quote unquote memorized in order to be able to do that final. So good luck. Let us know if you have any questions, and peace out. Stopping now.